As we saw in the last movie, we can adjust the framing of a target camera by moving that camera or its target or aim point. We can grab the Move tool and position the camera or its target. And this is a third-person method of framing a shot. It may be more intuitive to use a first-person method where we can click directly in the camera viewport and manipulate that camera's point of view. So I'll go over to that physical camera, click in that view. If you want to track or truck left and right, you can do that using the ordinary keyboard shortcut. Just hold down the middle mouse button and you can move the camera left or right in its own coordinate space. You can also click and drag with the middle mouse and move up and down to pedestal or crane up and down. You can also use the Shift key to constrain that movement, either up and down or left and right, just as we do with an ordinary perspective view. If you want to dolly forward and back, the hotkey does not work in a camera viewport. You'll need to use the buttons down here in the lower right in the viewport navigation area. Got a button here, Dolly Camera. Click on that button and then click and drag in the camera viewport. The camera will move towards or away from its target, if any. There is a slight issue with the Dolly tool. If we dolly forward enough, we'll actually go through the target and then the camera will be pointed in the opposite direction. Okay, I'll dolly back. Now we've got the framing we had before. Usually, if you've got a targeted camera, you'll want to use a variation of the Dolly tool. Go down to that button and hold it down, and you'll get a flyout from which you can choose to dolly the camera, its target, or both. And that's the option you want, the third button. And when you choose that, now you're dollying the camera and its target simultaneously, and you won't have that issue of the camera flipping around. Likewise, if you try to orbit using the keyboard shortcut, that does not work in a camera viewport. However, you can choose the Orbit tool, Orbit Camera, and then click and drag. The camera will spin around its target. I'll undo that. We can again constrain with the Shift key. We can orbit up and down in just one axis, or we can orbit left and right in the other axis. If you want to emulate the behavior of a real camera on a tripod, then you won't want to use the Orbit tool. You want to use the Pan Camera tool. The Pan Camera tool is, once again, on a flyout. It's hiding underneath the Orbit button. Click and hold that button down, and then choose the icon that looks like a hand, and that's the Pan Camera tool. Then click and drag in the physical camera viewport, and you can pan left and right or tilt up and down. And once again, you can constrain that by holding down the Shift key, so I can pan just left and right without tilting, or I can tilt up and down without panning. And finally, we saw how to set field of view numerically in the Modify panel. We can also adjust field of view from the icon here. Field of view works the same as it does in a perspective view. We can zoom in or out. That's how to use the viewport navigation tools to control a camera in first-person mode.